Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, Mindset Elevation Coach, Intentional Living Guide, and publisher of the beloved Aspire magazine. Can you believe Aspire is celebrating 18 years of inspiring, empowering, and supporting women to live their best lives, to live from the inside out? We have been dubbed Inspiration for a Woman's Soul. And I am so excited because 18 years of really bringing you content that speaks to the essence of who you are. Aspire speaks to you, not at you. And if this is even tickling your soul, I invite you to claim your free subscription. Yes, it's still free after 18 years. You can grab that at subscribe2aspire.com. And you can also, when you claim your free subscription, you'll also receive dozens and dozens of digital, valuable, transformational gifts from our supporters and contributors. So get on over to subscribe2aspire.com today. So today we're going to be talking about the power of resiliency and embracing change. And many of you have known about my life story and the last 4 years with Dana having 2 brain surgeries, me having 2 emergency surgeries, and how life can sometimes get really lifey. And joining me today is Kelly Tuttle. And Kelly is like the poster child for resiliency and courage and embracing change. She joined the Head Injury Survivors Club, as she describes it, in 2015, the night another car pulled in front of her as she was driving. It wasn't until 3 months later that she realized something was seriously wrong. Kelly's traumatic brain injury, or TBI, marked the beginning of a new life and a personal journey of self-rediscovery. A neurology nurse practitioner, Kelly has a front row seat to observe patients struggling with many of the same things she experienced in her recovery. And she strives and is passionate about sharing these coping strategies and tools and help others continue to work and study while they heal. She's the author of the book, After the Crash: How to Keep Your Job, Stay in School, and Live Life After a Brain Injury. You can learn more at kellytuttle.org. Kelly, welcome, my friend.
Thank you for that wonderful intro, Linda. And I am so excited to be here to speak to your listeners today.
Well, I got to tell you, Kelly, it's such an important story because, sometimes we go through things in life and we think it's the end, right? We get discouraged. And just a little bit I know about your story and the work you're doing now to support others is so beautiful. So take us back. Share a little bit about your personal journey of resilience and empowerment following your traumatic brain injury.
Well, my story really starts at falling asleep at the wheel and being awoken as my car bounced onto gravel and almost hitting a tree. And like you said, 3 months prior to this, I had been in a car accident. And I thought, I'll shake this off. I'll be okay. And I worked really, really hard to get back to my old self, my old life. And the result was falling asleep at the wheel. And originally I thought it was okay until I mentioned it to a colleague who was also a nurse practitioner, neurology nurse practitioner. And she pointed out, no, that's not okay. And At this point, I hadn't had a brain scan and I hadn't seen a neurologist. And because of my story of falling asleep at the wheel, my friend guided me to the right doctors to get the right testing and the right therapies. And I finally got onto the right road of recovery.
And so even prior to your accident, you've been in the field working with, am I understanding it right? You were already previously working with patients that struggled with the same issue?
No, actually, I was a cardiology nurse practitioner for 20 years. And in my endeavor to get better and heal, I was reading more and more about brain injuries and neurology and neuroscience. And my passion changed, and I was sharing my research and recovery with a friend of mine. And she said, "Hey, you should switch over to neurology because you would be a great caregiver. You'd have a lot of compassion." And I hadn't thought about it until then. And she inspired me to definitely look into it. I was so excited. I actually stayed up really late that night looking at all the steps I needed to complete to get myself trained in that field. And after 2 years of begging managers to hire me and allow me to be trained, I finally got a position in 2017, 2 years after my car accident, and have loved it since.
So it sounds like myself, even though you went through a really challenging time, it led you to your soul's work. It sounds like this is the work you were meant to do.
Yes, I've listened to some of your podcasts, and they've really made me look inward again and think about. There was one day that I just, for some reason, decided to go out onto my deck and write on a piece of paper. On the left side, I wrote all the things that I was passionate about and loved and had prior to my brain injury. And on the right side, I wrote all the things I gained or had changed since my brain injury. And when it came to it, when I looked at the two lists, I realized that I was on a better course in life after my brain injury than I was prior. And what I mean by that is that prior to my brain injury, I was very goal oriented, on the go, um, making to do lists, crossing off items. And then after my brain injury, I became more mindful of being in the moment, more patient, understanding, um, uh, more of a slower, wanting more of a slower and simple life, which is quite different.
It sounds like more intentional, right? Like it's almost like you began, as I did, so I can really relate, of living from the inside out instead of the outside in. Because I think we were kind of trained to chase, strive, push, keep going, going, going until our body just shouts or our soul shouts. So I love that you made the two lists and looked at like so there's so many blessings that have come from this, even though it was a difficult time. Do you see it now that way?
Um, I see. Yeah, it was, when I look back, it was a difficult time. And in fact, the first 2 years, I think I just slept, worked and slept. But yeah, you're right. I think that a lot of us are, it's really encouraged in our society to accomplish and be goal driven. And I really think that that's not the best way to be 100% because it's distracting you from the moment of your life, of appreciating the smaller things in your life, appreciating your family, your friends, that conversation you have over coffee, your home, your yard, being outside, those type of things. If you're constantly go, 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 you're just distracted from the beauty that you're surrounded by.
I know I was. I mean, I'm 62 now, and for the first 30 years of my life, as I've shared, I was go, go, go. I didn't even like to be alone because the thought of being alone with myself and hearing my own thoughts. So I would just go at the speed of light, live on iced coffees. And then through certain life experiences, I realized this is not living, it's existing. And I think, like I tell everyone, Aspire's 18 years old now, and women have said to me, "Oh, you're the one that birthed Aspire?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess you can say that, but really, she gave birth to the highest version of myself because Aspire has helped me through all the knowledge I've shared of others, right? Has helped me realize that I want to live from the inside out. I want to enjoy those moments, as you so beautifully said, and be fully present with a cup of coffee I'm drinking, or look at the birds outside. But when we're in that other energy, it's really hard. And I'm finally in a good place, so I can really relate to that. So we're going to take our first break, Kelly, and when we come back, let's talk about your book, After the Crash, because in it you offer these strategies for reclaiming one's life after adversity. And I got to tell you, our audience is from around the world, and I'm sure many are saying, "Oh, I need those strategies right now." So we'll be back in a moment, my friends. I am with Kelly Tuttle. You can learn more at kellytuttle.org. Be sure to grab a copy of her book, After the Crash, How to Keep Your Job, Stay in School, and Live Life After a Brain Injury. We'll be back in a moment.
Inspiration for a Woman's Soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is the author of After the Crash, Kelly Tuttle. And Kelly, I got to say, first off, writing your book, that had to have been a passion project because I'm a book publisher, so I've published 20 books, and I know from working with the authors how much love and intention goes into it. And then you are offering strategies to support others who have a loved one or maybe themselves that have struggled with a traumatic brain injury. So let's talk about why you knew this book was needed.
Yeah, so I remember uh, feeling very anxious about returning to work 2 weeks prior to returning to work, and wondering how I was going to make it and how I was going to support my brain while I was at work. And when I decided to write my book, again, I was inspired by a friend to do so. My book, it was really important that it had those strategies and tools that I learned along the way to help someone return back to work or school while their brain was healing. And I wanted my book to be really easy to read, easy to pick up, easy to put down. It's also on Audible because not everyone is able to read while healing from a brain injury. So it was really important that I had that option available for those individuals too. But I really didn't want anybody to go through what I did, um, looking to find ways to support my brain as I was going back to work. When I looked things, I found some good things, but I had to spend a lot of time searching through books and the internet, and it was exhausting because it was difficult for me to read. My memory wasn't very good, and I was I was I suffered from a really bad neurofatigue, chronic fatigue, and headaches, which worsened if I spent too much time on the computer or reading. So I really wanted all these strategies and tools and compensatory techniques to be in one place for a brain injury survivor who was looking to return to work or school.
I love the mission behind it. And so could you share or highlight one or two key principles from your book that you have found particularly impactful on your own healing journey?
Yes. So it was really important to talk about brain injury symptoms. Brain injury symptoms vary from each individual. Everyone's injury is as unique and their recovery is as unique as their personality. So I wanted to have some common symptoms in the book that I described that were related to the brain injury and reasons why, and the specialists that you should see for those symptoms. And that was one of the things I had difficulty with my recovery, was finding the right people to help me get better. And I definitely wanted to make that way on the road to recovery a lot easier. And then with the symptoms, for instance, one of the symptoms some people will have is sound sensitivity. Their brain is just not able to filter out background noises, or that's not able to dampen loud noises, or normal noises will sound really loud. And so I shared with that symptom that using noise canceling technology, whether that's a headphone or earbuds, can help you create an external filter and allow you to read and focus while you're working and studying until your brain heals and is able to spare that extra energy for filtering out external noises.
Those are such helpful tips and as you shared, everyone's symptoms are different. Excuse me one moment. Gotta clear my throat. So everyone's symptoms are different. Where did you go for the support? Did you have support groups? I mean, other than the medical professionals that you saw, are there support groups out there for like global so that anyone can attend either virtually or in person?
Yes, so I went to a local support group, and I did find it very, very helpful. Unfortunately, I could only go a couple times because it was an hour after, it was an hour and a half after my work day. It was during the week that they met, and it was an hour drive from my home and back. And so I couldn't keep going because of the fatigue. But since the pandemic started, a lot of um, support groups have gone to virtual. And that I think is really great because that allows um, people, um,
To
are you
really
still
connect,
there?
right? To really be able to connect and hear themselves mirrored in other people's stories. I think the support groups is so powerful.
Yes, yes. Um, and that connectiveness, being able to talk to people who understand what you're going through is really essential with your healing, because a brain injury can be very isolating. First of all, you're too tired, or you have sensory overload to want to leave the home, but it also seems to kind of pull you inside your mind, and you can get stuck inside your head with really negative thoughts of anxiety, worry, and ruminating over maybe the accident or what you've lost. So getting into a support group really helps you kind of get out of your head, and then meet with people who also understand what you're going through.
Oh, I think that's a big thing. Well, you could feel so isolated if you didn't have a community or a coach or someone that can mirror back to you. I could see you actually speaking at these groups and bringing your book to these support organizations because you have such a powerful message, and with your background as a nurse practitioner, I think you would have a lot of valuable insights to share with an audience.
Yeah, that is definitely on the goal of to-do list.
Yeah, they're your ideal audience. Those running those community groups, those are the ones for you to get in front of because your book is powerful, your journey is powerful, and then you have the background as the nurse practitioner, and now as a neurology nurse practitioner, you'd bring so much to the table for that. So what are some insights or lessons from your own journey that you incorporate into your professional practice?
Um, what I learned is that the first 3 months after my brain injury, I lacked self-awareness, and meaning I didn't really see the consequences of my actions. I really didn't know my limits, and I really didn't realize that something was wrong, believe it or not. And when I take care of my patients, um, I have seen that occur in them too. And what I try to share is that when someone has a head injury or they fall or an object hits their head, um, they really need to be monitored closely by their general practitioner, because I don't think that with some injuries, especially if it happens to the frontal lobe, where that awareness, which is a higher executive function, that's kind of where our math skills, time management, planning skills are. Um, when you have a frontal lobe brain injury, then you lose those higher executive functions. And I don't think it's fair to tell a patient, here's a list of symptoms to monitor for, call me if you have any more problems. I don't think they're all capable of doing that, and that they really should be brought back like after 2 weeks of the injury, then every month, and then every 3 months and 6 months to monitor for those symptoms, and to help that person navigate their healing if they end up needing that support.
That's critical because, as you shared earlier, if your executive function is altered or your level of self-awareness, then you could have a paper in front of you with those symptoms, but you're not going to cognitively recognize them because of the injury.
Exactly. So I was one of those patients. I was sent home with a list of symptoms. I even pulled up information on the internet and printed it out. And it wasn't until 3 months after the brain injury that I started to, I was just trying so hard to get back to my life, and I was failing, failing, failing. And one day it just occurred to me that, oh, this could be because of my concussion, and I'm not better. I'm actually worse. And so I went home and pulled out those papers and read them and saw all the symptoms. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have that. That's what's going on. And that's when I started to seek care, and decide to get help. And I just really don't want someone else to have to go through that.
No, because it's so isolating. And in some cases with certain brain injuries, you can even have behavior changes that you're not even aware of and your loved ones may not even understand is part of the injury.
Exactly. Like, for me, I would be trying to either work on bills or cook, and my family would come up and start talking to me. And after a while, I would get grumpy and irritable and snap at them. And what it turned out to be was that when I was focusing, whether it was the bills or cooking, and someone was talking to me, they were breaking my focus. And when you break focus in a healthy brain, you don't really notice that transition. But to a brain injury person, it's huge, and it uses a lot of their energy, and they'll get grumpy and not even really realize it until it's pointed out, that you can't multitask until your brain heals more. Um, and with that, when I learned that that was the case for me, I was able to communicate with my family and say, hey, sorry, that was my brain talking. I'm getting kind of grumpy. Can you give me a minute to finish this? And then we'll talk after I'm done.
That self-awareness is huge that you could have that conversation. So that's beautiful. Where do you feel you are on the healing journey now? Do you consider, like, what percentage do you feel like you're back? I mean, you have the you wrote an amazing book. So where are you in your trajectory since your crash in 2015?
Well, I kind of make my own categories. I have the early phase, right where you're right after the brain injury, and you have significant symptoms. And then there's like the moderate stage where your symptoms are starting to fade. You're starting to get a little bit more energy, so you're starting to push things and expand. Say like starting to walk for exercise or so forth. And then there's a late stage, which I consider somebody in the late stage. They're able to read and work and travel or basically get back into life, but their um, they still have some symptoms and they still are using compensatory tools. For example, when I travel, I allow for a lot of uh, layover time, extra days to rest at my destinations to help manage my fatigue. And so I consider myself, of course, late in recovery. I would say I'm about 70% on really good days, 60 on bad days. And um, basically, I have difficulties, with speech, my fatigue, my focus, and attention, sound sensitivity, light sensitivity. But I'm able to cope with it. I'm more familiar with it. And so then I'm able to kind of pad my energy or use a tool to help continue to do the things that I want to do.
I'm so happy to hear that. When you said about the travel and you build yourself space, I do the same thing because I think we're so trained that we get into like this overwhelm energy. So now, even without a brain injury, I always ask myself, how can I build in more spaciousness in my life so that I don't go into overwhelm or anxiety? Because I think we're also trained to jam everything in. That's not living to me anymore, right? So the spaciousness helps you reduce the triggers, right? The exhaustion, the anxiety, the overwhelm.
Exactly. And it creates for more of a um, relaxing vacation, and it allows you to absorb more of the place that you're in. And it's really interesting because I have two travel companions, and they are go, 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 go. And I'm sloth mode, seriously. And the combination is really, really good. for both of us.
Yeah, you help slow them down and they help give you a little pep.
Exactly.
Exactly. I have family members like that, so I can relate. And Kelly, we're gonna take another quick break and we're gonna come back and continue this conversation. We'll be right back, my friends. Please visit Kelly at kellytuttle.org and grab a copy of her book, After the Crash. We'll be back in a moment.
Are you ready to create and live the divinely guided life intended for you? A life not bound by your past or tied to a specific future. A life beyond your fears and what ifs that is filled with limitless possibilities. Experiencing an empowered life of fulfillment, joy, and connection is possible when you embrace a spiritual solutions-centered lifestyle. Through her transformational teachings and programs, Lisa Hermata, empowered Life View Guide, life transformation mentor, and founder of Love is the Seed, empowers women to break the barriers holding them back from living their sacred truth so they can find greater connection with their inner wisdom and their divine source to co-create a life that brings peace, joy, and self-acceptance. Visit loveistheseed.com for positive guidance and valuable resources to support you in embracing an empowered life view.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. Thanks for circling up with me and my special guest, the author of After the Crash, Kelly Tuttle. So, Kelly, just listening to your story, it really is about the power of resiliency and learning to embrace change instead of fighting it. I notice you use the word embracing change in different places in your messaging. Is that a part of like learning to accept what is instead of fighting against it? Is that like the energy of what you mean by that?
Yes. So it's really important that if you're getting to a point in your recovery and realizing that certain things are not going to resolve, say my energy never came back to where it had been, um, to be okay with that. And in my book, I talk about letting go. You have to let go of your old self and get to know your new self and embrace and like your new self. Otherwise, you're going to stay in a rut and not be able to heal. And when I say let it go, I don't mean get over it. What I mean is acknowledge your old self and your losses and grieve. Go through the grieving of that loss. And if you need help, seek the help of a counselor, therapist, or a psychologist, or anybody who offers talk therapy, or a close friend or family member. And when and when you're looking at your old self and the things that you're sad about losing, take them with you. When you go along on your journey, you don't, you, I'm not saying let it go and leave your old self behind. What I'm saying is accept that there's been change. Take your old self with you along your journey and um, and then get to know the new you because your old self is still going to be the foundation of your new you. But you really do need to learn to love and accept the new you in order to move forward in your life.
I love that. And I love about what you said about bringing the old you with you. It's not like we're shunning or shedding. And I think energetically, it's such an important part of our healing when we can accept what is and move forward. Because a lot of times when we go through any kind of major life transition, whether it's a brain injury or one of the other myriad of life transitions that hit us, I used to try in my younger years, I would fight against it. It would be like, I do not want this to happen. And I would try to control it. And I'm like, that's like, I was micromanaging the divine, right? And finally, I
Mhm.
said, this takes so much energy to fight something. What if I just lean in and learn the lessons and learn how I can be my highest self in the midst of the transition? Had made a world of difference. And when I was going through my own healing for different things, I realized my energy could be used towards my body for healing instead of going outward trying to change what I can't change. Does that resonate for you too?
Yes, I think that a lot of people try to control things around them, and that's not possible, and leads to unhappiness, frustration, sadness. But what you can control, you really need to look at when you're in an uncomfortable situation where things seem out of control, is to really look inward and see what it is inside me that I can control. And that could be, I can choose to decide how I'm going to react, um, for instance. But that is very, very important because it's just unrealistic to think that you can control your environment and the things that happen to you in your life.
Yeah, and I found so much more peace when I stopped micromanaging the divine in life. I found so much more peace. I found that I wasn't in overwhelm and anxiety as much, and I spent a lot of my years there, so I know that energy. So I would love if you could share some practical tools. You've shared so many already that you found helpful in navigating periods of significant transition or uncertainty, because I know our audience, whether it's divorce, loss of a loved one, career change, life transitions is something we all experience. Do you have some helpful tips and strategies for someone going through one now?
Well, what my number one tool that I would recommend is journaling. It's so it helps when you journal, it helps get thoughts out of your head, and it is very relieving to do that. And sometimes when you get your thoughts out on paper, you realize when you look at it, it's not as scary as it was sitting there spinning around in your brain. So definitely journal. I journal every morning and every night. And it was a huge part of my recovery because that was how I was able to let go of the old and embrace the new. And it's where I learned about my symptoms and what was triggering my symptoms, and then coming up and devising tools and strategies to help mitigate the effects of those triggers on my brain. And so, yeah, I would recommend first journal. And then, and it really, journaling can be super simple. It could be just the date, and just if you slept good the night before. It doesn't have to be paragraph after paragraph. And the other thing is to practice mindfulness. And that's being in the moment and letting, um, being with your thoughts and just kind of looking at your thoughts, acknowledging them and not judging them, and then push them aside and get back into the moment, whether that is being outside and listening to the birds chirp. If you have, um, if you're not familiar with mindfulness, there's lots of resources and books in the internet, and a counselor or a psychologist or a therapist can help you learn more about mindfulness and how to apply it in your daily life.
So these are two things that are just integral to your healing journey. I've always believed in journaling too. And I think it's like, um, I know there's so many different ways we can journal. I used to do like the dates and write about my day. When you're 15, you fill the notebooks. Now it's almost like a conversation with my inner self. I just want to be fully aware. What am I thinking? What am I present? But the pieces of wisdom that rise to the surface or the messages, um, or noticing patterns. Do you notice if you look back at your journals, you see a pattern, whether it's a behavior pattern or in your case, maybe a symptom pattern? Do you ever go back in your journals and look?
Oh, yes. And it's definitely something I recommend my brain injury patients to do, is to look back in their recovery journal because there is the evidence as um, that shows how far they have come in their recovery. For instance, one of my journal entries was my frustration that I couldn't make toast and coffee at the same time because I would lose my coffee or I'd forget the toast in the toaster and wonder why I was hungry. And then it's just like this crazy, my husband's like, why is this dried up piece of bread in the toaster? And so it was just crazy. And then I make my coffee and then I put it down and I would lose it and I'd have all these coffee cups all over the house. And so that was fun, to look back. Hey, at one point, I could not make toast and coffee at the same time. I had to make them separately. And now look at me. I've written a book and trying to start my own small business of digital content creation. So yes, looking back, there is a lot of information that you can glean and learn from.
I love this, and I love the hope that you're giving other traumatic brain injury survivors. We're going to take a final break, real quick one. We'll come back for the last segment and we'll dive in even deeper. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. My guest today is Kelly Tuttle. Visit her at kellytuttle.org. We'll be back in a moment.
Are you feeling called to clear your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual blockages? That's your soul and environment speaking to you and asking you to uncover all the clutter that is preventing you from living the life you envision. Felicia Messina DeHady, soul coaching master practitioner and trainer and teacher of advanced interior alignment and medicine wheel feng shui, supports her international clientele by creating inner and outer transformation in their environments and their lives by combining elements from her extensive training, experience, and intuition. Felicia is a master intuitive coach, certified by Colette Barron-Reed, and has served as a master mentor for Denise Lin's Elemental Space Clearing certification course, as well as her Ultimate Clutter Clearing. Explore her offerings, including certification courses in Feng Shui, space clearing, soul coaching, and Reiki at FeliciaDeHady.com.
Welcome back. I am so honored that you chose to circle up with us today. With me is Kelly Tuttle, author of After the Crash, How to Keep Your Job, Stay in School, and Live Life After a Brain Injury. So, Kelly, you shared about how journaling is an important part of your healing and then mindfulness. And then you also just mentioned that you're interested in starting your business with content creation. Will that all be around this genre of supporting others with brain injuries?
Yes, I am trying to put together an online course that people can take uh, to learn about returning to work. It's going to be very much focused on that. But most of my content, I have a YouTube channel and I'm on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. And those platforms, I create videos and I talk about brain injury symptoms and what it's like to recover from a brain injury. I just want to get the word out there that um, there is hope, that people are not alone, and also which specialists and therapists to seek to help you recover because the US healthcare system is quite complicated to navigate. And it's even more so for brain injuries because we don't have guidelines currently in caring for people with traumatic brain injuries, especially mild traumatic brain injuries. There's a lot of support with the severe and moderate brain injuries, but the mild traumatic brain injury, the person who's in a car accident and goes home, there isn't guidelines on how to take care of them. And in fact, brain injury medicine is just now blooming. And what that is physiatrists, also known as physical medicine and rehab physicians, are specializing in brain injury care. So it's really a field of medicine that is just in its infancy. And there's so much out there that's coming out, such as neuroplasticity. That is where the brain rewires after an injury. And that is super exciting and fascinating too.
I got to tell you, this is an important mission that you're on. There are so many struggling, as you said, that don't even know there's support out there, don't know where to turn. And, I'm just love that you turned your struggles into a mission that's now creating a ripple effect to reach all these other individuals that maybe thought they were alone and they're not. Maybe thought they didn't know where to turn, and now you're giving them strategies and tips and tools and resources. I just wanted to say I admire you, my friend.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Linda, because I love what you're doing and putting out there into the universe. You're just an amazing person.
Well, it's what I've always told my clients, life can get lifey at times, but we always have the power to turn our mess into the message, our pain into wisdom that can be shared with others. And that's what I chose to do in my life after 30 years of struggle. And so thank you. And thank you for being here today, joining me. And I want to invite everyone again, kellytuttle.org, to learn more about the work she's doing in the world. Is there anything else on your website, all the social media that they can connect with you? Anything else that you got coming up? I know you're working on your course. Anything else you want to share or tell us about, or any other strategies in the last 4 minutes or so?
Yes. So, well, first, I would like to say another technique that if you're having a rough time in your life is to make sure that you are getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep at night. And I know here in the US, we don't value sleep, but when you sleep, that is when your brain processes the stresses in your life and helps soften them so that you can face them a little bit with a little bit more clarity the next day. So don't short yourself on sleep. It's an important brain function. And then the other thing I would share is if you're looking for job accommodations, reasonable job accommodations, go to askjan.com or Job Accommodations Network, and you can click on whatever chronic issue you have, and they'll give you a list of strategies and accommodations that you can try at work that might help support you continue to work as you're healing.
Oh, supportive resources. Thank you so much for sharing. Can they also find those links on your website, Kelly?
No, but you know what you can find on my website is I do have a free a medical cheat sheet. It's called a stressless medical visit uh, worksheet. And on that worksheet are all the questions your doctor or your therapist or your specialist is going to want to know about your symptoms. And it has spots for questions to remember to ask when you get there and to write the recommendations that provider provided you and when you should follow up. And I would definitely recommend downloading that because, as we all know, providers are pressured on time. So if you can be detailed, quick, and concise with your symptoms with that sheet, you're going to get more out of your visit.
Oh my God, that's such a valuable tool. And again, ladies, that's at kellytuttle.org. And listen, whether it's for you or for a friend or a loved one, be sure to grab a copy of that free checklist from Kelly. That's so valuable because, I've helped family members with different medical issues. And one of the things is they get there and especially my older relatives, they get there and they forget everything that they wanted to talk about when they finally get there. And then they feel rushed. They don't feel heard. And I'm like, what you just
Hmm.
shared is so darn valuable. They can go in focused, they'll feel heard, and more important, they'll feel like they're part of the conversation.
Exactly. And I have seen the same thing as a nurse practitioner that you've seen with your family members. And the sheet can be, it doesn't have to be a brain injury. It could be anything. It could be hot flashes and menopause symptoms. You can definitely use it. And yes, it will be really helpful. And I also recommend always taking a loved one, a trusted friend, into your appointments because they are stressful and you do tend to forget some of the things that the provider says because you're so worried you're going to get bad news or whatever, our brains kind of tell us when we're in that situation. So I love it when my patients bring family members because I know that I'm going to be, my recommendations are going to be heard and remembered.
What a beautiful way to close out our time together. I want to remind everyone to get that checklist at kellytuttle.org and, of course, grab a copy of her book, After the Crash. Kelly, thank you so much for joining me, my friend. I love the work you're doing in the world and I'm honored to share your message here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be able to talk to you and your listeners.
Thank you. And until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.